Wait for Chris.
Let's start.
Okay.
Welcome, committee members, liaisons, and members of the public to the Executive Committee meeting of the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission. We will be beginning momentarily. We're using Zoom with the goal of fostering a more inclusive environment and effective meeting. If you would like to comment during the meeting, please type "I have a comment" or "I have a question" in the chat, and a message will be sent to the host. Alternatively, you can also use the raise hand feature. In efforts of transparency for all those joining this public meeting, whether by phone or Zoom, we request that you refrain from having side conversations on chat about the content of the meeting. Again, the chat feature is utilized simply as a tool for you to virtually indicate that you would like to speak in order to help the chair facilitate the discussion. Going forward, all commission and committee meetings will be recorded and posted to the State Bar website. This is a friendly reminder that it's a video conference, so please be aware of your surroundings, especially behind you. Troubleshooting tips: if you're using Zoom on a computer, if you're on mute, holding down the space bar will temporarily unmute you. If you're using your phone to dial in, please make sure your computer's microphone is on mute to avoid audio feedback. And when joining audio via computer is highly recommended. If you are losing audio, you can call in separately using the Zoom conference number. I believe that is all of our housekeeping.
Thank you, Dan. Welcome, everybody. Kim and I are glad to see you for the first of 4 executive committee meetings. They will proceed for commission meetings during the next year, and we're going to switch off. I drew the short straw, so I'll begin. Shall we commence with the roll call, Dan?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, again, welcome to the first executive committee meeting of the new term. Welcome, Chris and Christina, to the executive committee. So I'll do roll call. Reines?
Here.
Savage?
Here.
Schreiber?
Here.
Vanarelli?
Here.
Okay, we have quorum. Let me do a roll call for the rest of the liaisons and staff. Copeland? Selena? Bonnie Huff? Dan, I see you. Elizabeth?
Here.
Brady? Brady's joining us about 5 or 10 minutes later. And so we have quorum and we have done roll call for staff. So I hand it back to you, Rich.
All right. Are there any members of the public who've joined us by telephone or otherwise who I would request identify yourselves at this time?
There's Claire Salat, and I'll allow her to talk.
Hi, it's Claire Solad from the LSFN, and it is delightful to be with all of you today.
Welcome, Claire. If during the course of our agenda you wish to speak, please let us know by any of the means Dan identified, and we'll recognize you. All right, so we have a consent item to begin. This is approval of the meeting summary and actions taken at the August 3rd meeting. And I'm advised by parliamentarians that although you didn't attend that meeting, you are permitted to vote favorably or unfavorably as you wish by proxy. So you may vote in favor of this. If you have reviewed the material and have any objections, please state them now. Hearing no objections, I ask for consent on this item.
Should I do roll call vote, Rich?
Yes, please.
We don't have a motion. Is a motion necessary for consent?
Oh, yes, that's a good point, Dan. We need a motion.
Yeah, second.
I'm sorry, was that Kim and then Christina?
It was Chris and then Kim.
Chris and then
Thank
Kim,
you.
yeah.
Chris and then Kim, okay.
And now the motions have made it almost unanimous.
So I'll do roll call. Reines?
Aye.
Savage?
Yes.
Schreiber?
Yes.
Vanarelli?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under discussion and action items, we have an update on the PLL program. I hope everyone's familiar with that. If not, please let us know, and I'll turn it over to Duan and Dan.
And just quickly, this is the fee bill. We increased it from $45. That $5 was to fund provisional licensed lawyers. So it's a fellowship program. We have issued checks for all but one program that was not able to hire the PLL. So Chris and I are going down the list now. And, you know, the first two programs that we went down the list, they couldn't also hire. So we're going to be making our way down. But at some point, and perhaps maybe at the next executive committee, if we're not able to distribute that money, then we'll present you with a couple options. Maybe we'll go back to, as one option, to the existing kind of grantees and see if we didn't fund them at the full amount, maybe we did divide that and fund them, or else the legislation says that we're not able to distribute it all, it'll go out as IOLTA grants. But we'll try to exhaust kind of all those other possibilities before we use that option. So I'll have a greater update at the next executive committee meeting.
And just as part of the update one, if I remember correctly, these checks were at a minimum amount of $50,000 each.
They were not a minimum amount. Programs could request, you know, I can't actually remember if they were minimum. I don't think they were the minimum amount. I can email that out. And I apologize. I just can't recall right now.
Do you know how many PLLs we've actually funded?
It was in the 15 range. It was a sizable amount because when we first ran the estimate, we thought we would only be able to fund 3 or 5. But, you know, we thought perhaps the people that would be the attorneys donating, they might opt out because it's, you know, it went from $40 to $45, but there wasn't that decrease. And so we were able to garner more money than we anticipated. So it's a nice number of cohort, the amount of fellowships that we're able to fund with this program. And we received a lot of positive feedback. We're going to be doing some evaluations at the end of the fellowship program to see kind of how many services were provided through these fellows.
Is there a deadline for hiring? In other words, when you start checking back with those programs, do they have a window?
Well, we had a deadline for them, and executive committee gave staff a little bit of flexibility. Say if they missed it by a week or two, we would give them that. But then Chris and I, we were flexible, but then we had to move on to the next. We couldn't wait indefinitely because there's a time limit on the legislation, and we were just afraid if we waited too long, then by the time we make it to the next grantee, the window the grant period would be very short.
There is a footnote to this, and that is that the $5 increase to fund this program will theoretically terminate when the program terminates.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are to act like a state agency, we might think of some strategy to avoid that for a future meeting. All right, thank you very much for the update. And now to discuss a client complaint from Lisnick. Dwan, you want to give us some background on that?
Yeah, Dan is actually, he's the staff that processes complaint. Dan's going to provide us some background.
Just for clarification, this is actually a complaint which we received about Lisnick, not from Lisnick. State bar rules include a procedure for reviewing complaints against recipients of trust fund program grants. Under these procedures, staff try to help the parties resolve any disagreements informally, but if it is still unresolved after 90 days, staff must report on the status of the matter to the commission. The complainant and the grantee organization both get a copy of that report, and the grantee organization gets a copy of the complaint, and both of them get 30 days after receiving the report to submit more information or to request an informal conference for further review. After that 30 days, the commission shall either issue an order dismissing the complaint or set an informal conference for further review. This report concerns a complaint we received about grantee legal services in Northern California. The complainant contacted Lisnick in November 2020 for help with a dispute with his cell phone service provider. He believed he'd completed an intake at that time. Lisnick states they were not unable to complete that intake and therefore couldn't provide services at that time. Complainant contacted Lisnick repeatedly seeking assistance over the next 2 months, but became frustrated when Lisnick continued to try to complete an intake for him. So the complainant contacted the state bar in March of 2021 with the complaint that Lisnick had not provided him with legal services. Staff tried to resolve this informally over the course of a few months. This was somewhat complicated, by the complainant needing to conduct all business only over the telephone and not in writing at all. So it took longer to make the connections with him. Also, the complainant's telephone doesn't link up with the internet telephone service that the State Bar uses. So every time we needed to contact him, we actually needed to go to the office, which most of us aren't typically doing. It just delayed the resolution. However, over time and over several conversations, the complainant did agree to complete an intake with Lisnick, and over the course of several more conversations through the month of September, Lisnick did provide some information and resources with regard to this person's concerns. Let's see, there does not appear to be a writing confirming that there's an actual attorney-client relationship between the two, but they have been providing some information and like legal resources. However, by the time they were doing this, the complainant's dispute had gotten to the point where new issues were involved that weren't in Lisnick's usual area of practice. Lisnick provided what information they could about them, but they explained that they could not provide further representation because those areas were not in their area of practice and they didn't have the resources to develop that expertise. I spoke with the complainant on October 22nd. He acknowledged that Lisnick did provide him with legal services to the extent that they were able to, but he is now saying that those services were not provided sufficiently timely for Lisnick to be able to resolve his problem before it got out of their realm of practice. The standard of review in these matters is whether Lisnick met its obligations under the State Bar rules and the IOLTA statute. These rules prohibit discrimination on the basis of age or other protected status. They prohibit providers from imposing restrictions that are unrelated to the IOLTA statute. They require providers to meet all their ethical obligations to their clients and to retain records of client eligibility for at least 5 years after services are concluded. The memo you got says the complainant got a copy of the report on October 22nd, or perhaps earlier than that, the 20th, I think. That email wound up bouncing back and we needed to come back into the office, get a new address for him. And he actually received the complaint on October 25th, this Monday. His 30-day period to request further review will expire on November 24th. And we intend to ask the Trust Fund Commission on November 17th for an order dismissing the complaint as of November 25th, when the period expires, unless we get more information in the interim requesting a hearing or otherwise suggesting that wouldn't be the right resolution. However, in conversation with the complainant, he's indicated that he did not intend to make a response at that time. He has the full 30 days, of course, to do so. This is informational for your purposes, so that you know that the parties have received copies of this information and what the process is going to be. But if you've got any questions, I'm happy to respond to them.
Let me add a little color to this. There is enabling legislation in the Business and Professions Code, which lays out rules of procedure for the State Bar Legal Services Trust Fund. And under Rule 3692, which is entitled Complaints, the procedure that Dan's just described is laid out. If you scroll to the end of the memo and its attachments, you'll see the provisions of that rule that govern what we're talking about. Such complaints are exceedingly rare. In my over 10 years of service on this commission, it's hard to recall any that have been brought before the commission. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but I can't remember one that actually got to the commission. The commission's authority is draconian. We could actually suspend funding to Lisnick if we were to have determined that it did not follow procedure in accordance with our rules. So we do have significant power and authority here, and Lisnick is very concerned about this, as any legal service provider would be of any complaint filed against them. But I think under the circumstances, the very nature of the complaint speaks to why this has dragged on as long as it has. The complainant has not been fully cooperative to the extent that phone calls that finally get through to the complainant have been extended and sometimes semi or totally abusive. So not that that would make the determination any different. As Dan pointed out, the standard here is whether or not Lisnick followed rules and procedures. That has been the determination of staff, and when it comes up before the commission, the recommendation will be to dismiss. I hope that all will support that, but let's have a more full-throated discussion if you like.
Well, I think maybe we should add that we, according to Dwan and Dan, I guess also, we're anticipating a rather lengthy memo from Gary Smith, who's the longtime executive director of Lisnick. He is, as Rich has said, extremely upset about this. It was one of those situations that arises where there was a lot of difficulty in communicating and working with the client. So we don't really know, other than this memo coming, we don't know what could transpire within, the next 28 days. But I think we understand the concern of Lisnick, but I think that Dwan has indicated, what our sense is in terms of dismissing the complaint at this point.
Yeah, and Rich and Kim are right in that we only get a handful of these types of complaints every year that staff processes, anywhere between 3 and 5. So it's a very low volume. In my time here, 6.5 years, there hasn't been a time where we've elevated to the commission. I do have a recommendation for the rules committee, is that we look at the state bar rule and see if this is the best process and how we process complaints, because there definitely should be some. We do take these complaints very seriously. And there needs to be some reporting mechanism to the commission, but perhaps it's more of a delegation of authority to the co-chairs or XCOM instead of going to the full commission, because in cases where we do dismiss, we might not want to make it as public. So there, I think this is an example for the rules commission of like a live issue that they can use to as an example of how to change the rules. But this again is informational for your purposes, so that that this will be shared at the commission level. And if we do get any additional supplement materials from Lisnick or the complainant, we will share it at the commission.
So our authority is really sort of interesting here. We dismiss this, and our ruling as to dismissal is final. Our responsibilities to that complainant end. If the finding were otherwise, for example, to stop funding Lisnick, there's an appeal process. We may want to take a look at how fair that is to the complainants, but it seems to me that a complaint by a complainant against a qualified legal services provider ought to be handled the way a complaint against any legal service provider is handled. Once we dismiss it, it doesn't mean that the complainant's rights have terminated. They can proceed then to the state bar. I assume they could take the matter to the state bar court for relief, were they to, in effect, want to appeal our decision. Isn't that right, Dwan?
That I don't know if they can file in state bar court, or if they would just file in superior court. I don't know. That's probably.
I think we might want to have some clarity on that, because it seems to me that even though the services are provided at no cost, mm-hmm. and in effect are paid for by the grantees' donors, it strikes me that the rights of that complainant ought to be no greater nor less than any complainant in any private practice. Mm-hmm. But if that
is this something we could have Brady educate us on?
Yeah, sure. I can, and he's gonna show up any minute now. And if he doesn't show up today, then I'll have him, I'll prep him so that he can either send an email directly to the executive committee or share it with the full commission, however you like.
Okay.
I don't want to belabor this, but I mean, one thing that Rich and I talked about was given the rarity of a complaint rising up like this, and that we have new members on the commission, we want to send a really strong message about how rare this is. Actually for new and old members. So that's just an additional point, I think.
It's a
I'll
good
just mention,
point.
I looked through our records on complaints, and if anything, I think Dwan may have even overstated how often this happens. There are a couple of years when we got 2 or 3, but typically it's less than that.
Well, I agree with Rich since the time he and I have been on. I can't believe it's 10 years. That I mean, nothing has ever come to the commission. No complaint.
And Kim, this is come to the commission. This is coming to the commission because of the 90-day.
Right. Yes. No, I understand that. And you know, I don't know if there were any exceptions, you know, extenuating circumstances that we could have used. But anyway, we are where we are at. So.
Kim, your point reminds me of the first professional hockey game I took my daughter to see, and she got hit in the head with a puck. And I said to her, this is extremely rare. Don't think that every time you go to a hockey game, you're at risk of getting hit in the head with a puck. So we have to tell the new commission members, this is really rare. Don't expect every commission meeting to have to handle complaints from the clients. And we may have clients who are new to the commission joining us on November 17th who will think otherwise. So I think we have to make that point strong.
And it's just a reminder, obviously, we take every complaint that comes through our office very seriously, but we have to put in context that, you know, we fund 100 programs. They are serving thousands and thousands of clients every year. And so it's a customer service type business, you know, so there will be complaints that will be processed. So.
All right. If there's nothing further, let's move to the meeting calendar. Do you want to do a share screen?
Sure. Let me pull it up and share my screen. Sorry, it's a little slow. Okay, great. Can you see this, the meeting dates? So these are the 4 meeting dates for the commission at top, and then the 4 corresponding for the executive committee. I do want to note that usually with the commission meeting, we like to have them on Fridays because it's easier for a lot of people's schedules, including the judges. However, for next year, on November 17th and 18th, there's a board meeting. And so we're proposing to move that to Wednesday, November 16th instead. We contemplated the week before, but if we do the week before, it's really, really hard on staff time to review, because around from August to November, it's our busiest period, and that would shave off an additional week for us. So we're hoping that this November 16th will be amenable.
And if you guys will make note of those dates, they're in the agenda packet, I think.
And if you know you have a conflict, you can just let me know now, or else drop me an email and let me know.
I currently have trial scheduled on that May date, the 31st. So.
Oh, and that one is probably an easy one to move because it's just the, you know, our executive committee. Would you suggest I can move it, suggest another date like that week or the following week, or?
If I'm in trial, it's not going to help. So I wouldn't. I mean.
Or we can proceed without you?
Yeah, I just don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do the other dates look okay? I previewed this with Rich and Kim. It seemed fine. Christina, are they good for you?
Yeah, they look good.
Okay, great. So I'll be sharing out, we're sharing out actually our entire admin calendar at the next commission meeting. So the respective committee coordinators are now working with their chairs for the meeting dates for next year. And then I'll aggregate all the dates and then we'll share it out to the full commission.
Okay, next item is a review of our committee assignments.
Let me pull that up and share my screen.
Hey, Brady.
So this is the committee assignments for the this upcoming term. The one thing I do want to note is that Jeff Ball here is highlighted. We reached out to him, and actually he just emailed me last night to say that he's very busy. He will chair if we really need him to, but he's very, very busy. So I don't know how we want to proceed because we don't have a chair for that, for the bank grants committee. The committee is a bit dormant because we're not releasing an RFP this year, and I don't anticipate that we'll release one next year, just because of all the additional funding. The commission did express last year that they wanted to kind of hold off. There's about $7 million left over in the bank grant money that they wanted to hold off until after the pandemic to see kind of how things played out and to use this more of like emergency funding. And given the fact that we have had such a large increase for 2022, again, I don't anticipate that the commission is going to move towards releasing an RFP. So this committee is not going to be a heavy lift. With that said, we still need a chair because there will be probably about 2 or 3 committee meetings to process technical things like carryover and budget modification.
Let me ask you a question. This is something that I don't remember us ever doing, but I think maybe we should think about it. Jim Meeker's the chair of another committee. Amin, I think, is the chair of the Rules Committee. Yeah. So he's going to be terribly busy with that, and that is an active committee. Tammy is brand new, although she's a banker. And I have other responsibilities, so I would, unless there's strong objection, suggest you that Bob Planthold be named chair.
I am fine with that.
Are we aware of whether Bob is good with that, or?
I would have to reach out. We haven't.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Christina?
Fine with me.
Okay, so I can reach out to him and see if he's available.
Duan, can you remember when a client member of the commission chaired a committee?
I don't remember, but it's obviously not prohibitive. Even our judges may chair committees, so.
All right, well, let's give this a try.
Okay, so I will reach out to him and then drop you all an email.
I chaired that committee for quite a while, and Bob has been an active member on it. He's been on there for a long time, I believe.
Well, more so, he deserves it.
Mhm.
Kim, did you want to make a suggestion about a committee that's dropped out of sight but may not be for long?
Right. I would like us to consider reviving a nominations committee and ask for volunteers, because I think this is just a very, very important role of ours to make sure the commission is strong. We have the very best possible candidates, and with the new legislation, which is earmarking how many are appointed, I just think this is really important to us. We're all mindful of how stretched commissioners are. So I think the way to go is to ask for volunteers, and that we'll see if we get any. I think when we just bring this up at the commission meeting, full commission meeting.
Any thoughts about that? We used to have a nominations committee. Chris?
I agree. I think especially with the new legislation, it's important that this is like an active effort. So I think it's a very good idea.
Okay.
In light of that, if you look at the committee assignments, you can see there are overlaps. And we have a lot of, this is a volunteer group that's asked to do a tremendous amount of work with a lot of responsibility. Should we rethink the total number of commissioners?
The total number of commissioners on like the
There's
24.
21. We have 21 voting commission members, right?
Well, it's by statute. We would need a
Yeah,
statute
we
to
can't do
change.
anything.
Well, we just got a statute change. I know this is non-controversial. If we went from 21 to 24, would it really matter very much?
Well, we have 24 with 3 non-voting members. So the
Right. I get that. I'm just suggesting there's a lot of work to be done here. Judges and active lawyers have other calendars. If we had a few more, you would not have people on 2 or 3 committees.
I guess Rich, my reflexive take is that we probably politically would want to let the statute sit for at least a year. I do think that the nominations committee won't be a ton of work. Yeah, you know, famous last words.
No,
But
I think that's good advice, Chris. We've got a very terrific new bill on our hands. Let's let that play out for a while. But you guys will get the chairmanship in a year. And please keep in mind, I think that the commissioners will work very hard, to say nothing of staff. That may be in priority over the number of commissioners. Okay. And speaking of legislation, that's the next item on our list.
So I included as part of your meeting materials, a copy of SB 211 and also SB 498. The 498 increases the income threshold from 125% to 200%, discounts veterans benefits. And then in 211, in addition to kind of expanding the commission's authority, is that language around letting programs count expungements and infractions work. So that's in 211. I don't know if it would be helpful if we looked at it together, the legislation, and looked at how many people are appointed to by the state bar or the Senate, or if you've all had a chance to look at it together. There's just, I think the one paragraph that's probably would be helpful to look at it as a full commission, that section, where is it?
6210.
Yeah, it's a page 12 of the,
Right.
and I can share my screen too, if that's helpful. Okay. Can you see this?
Yes,
Okay, great. So here's the new structure of the commission. So 6 commissioners appointed by the State Bar Board of Trustees, 2 by the Senate, 2 by the Assembly, 10 by Judicial Council, and those 10 don't have term limits, and then 4 by the commission. But I think the nominations committee is a good committee because not only will you be recruiting for your 4, but perhaps there would be some mechanism to send additional viable candidates to suggest for the Senate and the Assembly, as well as the State Bar and Judicial Council. So I think that the nominations committee probably should be more broad than just appointments by the commission.
I mean, honestly, sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
I mean, the truth is the nominations committee's job is to sort of engage the full commission to be active in the, you know, identifying candidates. I think. I mean, maybe there's like some process stuff and blah, 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 but really the full commission should be working on this.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we have a number of goals. Some of the people that have been appointed in the past have really illuminated the need for there to be a nominations committee and one that's quite active. And I think we ought to seek geographic distribution, diversity, and other issues that may not come up through other processes. Dwan, can you scroll down to page 14?
Yes.
Just the next page, please.
So this is, I don't know if you're referring to this section, I think is
Section 4, I think, is the guts of this for me. Keep going right
Yes.
there.
Yeah, 4.
Oh, you know, I think it's you. Hold on, maybe.
That's the one expanding authority, right?
Well, yes, I think the presumptions flip in section 4.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yeah, you're right. This is the heart of it.
Well, actually, no, because currently the decisions take effect and they don't even go. I mean, there's no official provision for the Board of Trustees to reverse any individual grant awards. I think that the change here is really, I mean, in addition to the statute formally recognizing the commission and making changes to its composition is in 2 and 3.
You
in
don't think
this.
it's this past list, this phrase right here, Brady, this last?
Is that a typo or is it some glitch? The word final, it has been shortened.
Finding.
Oh, yeah, I don't know why it's struck.
No, it's 2 and 3 because 2 and 3 talk about the policies and before this law, the policies were, you know, first of all, there's almost always agreement, so this never came up, but the, you know, recommendations for policy changes were made by the commission and then the board basically could approve or deny those as it saw fit. Now, once, you know, rule changes governing the program are made by the commission, the board shall approve those unless it makes a finding that doing so would conflict with a legal obligation, whether statutory, fiduciary, or otherwise. Number 4, as far as individual grant awards, the current process is that grant awards are just made by the commission and they're reported to the Board of Trustees. So there's, you know, there is no formal process existing for the board to reverse or modify an individual grant award. You know, I suppose it could. So, you know, in that sense, but I don't see this as a major change because currently you guys make grant award decisions and they go into effect. The board doesn't review them.
But practically, Brady, for many years, we made presentations to the Board of Trustees and they voted to approve our recommendation. Presumably, if they were to vote no, the recommendations as to the grants would not have been final.
Well, so that's as to the total amount, and maybe more than 2 years ago. You've been here longer than I have, but for the past several years, the presentations are regarding the total amount, and then individual decisions aren't presented to the board. So the board doesn't vote on the individual grant awards. They vote on the reserve and the total amount to be distributed.
I'm with Rich. I've always understood the board to have that authority and that we were making a presentation for purposes of approval.
But not, it's not the individual grant awards though. The approval was the IOLTA distribution.
Yeah.
We never send up a list of grant awards for approval.
Well, maybe that's the case in the last couple of years because I haven't done it, but I would say there's an additional part to this statute, which I've never considered before. And that is if the board were to vote no on our recommendation, they have to make a finding.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that finding is set out here. I've never seen that before. I always thought they could go thumbs up or thumbs down, but now they actually have to make a finding.
Correct.
It's one more process. Yeah.
If I may, I'm sorry, I'm late.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. So yeah, so I think that's sort of a big part here, and it applies in this section as well as the section where we're talking about the overall allocation and looking at that number, and also in the policies as well. I think one of the key points here is that the board is not going to be substituting its judgment for the judgment of the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission. If the board believes that an action of that a recommendation of the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission somehow would violate the sort of legal obligations or fiduciary obligations of the bar, that's when they would have to make a finding, but otherwise they are not to substitute their judgment. That's really the big change, that because as you're suggesting, Rich, in the past, the general rule is, right, and let's take the trust fund commission out of it. You know, another commission brings a recommendation for rules to a rule change to the board, and the board looks at that rule change and they say, yeah, we actually don't think the direction that committee on X took is the best one for the client population or for the public or for the attorneys, whoever the subject is. We don't think that's the best one. We think that the recommendation should be X. They will still do that for other committees and commissions, but when it comes to the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission, their policy judgment does not get to be substituted for yours.
Donna, that's great. I hope that when we have a commission meeting, you'll be in attendance and help us to explain that to the commission members.
Yes,
Because-
happy to.
Yeah, I think it's the kernel, the essence of this new legislation for me is this sort of flip.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite important for us to recognize that and to take the responsibility even more seriously. Thanks a lot.
Exactly.
So, you know, Rich and Kim and I met earlier this week to kind of talk about how we present this to the commission. And so we thought we'd walk the commissioners through kind of the changes and the structural changes. But, you know, some of this legislation is kind of abstract and it's going to play out once we have live issues. So we thought maybe a practical exercise that would be make it less abstract is to take what was passed. It's called the functional matrix, and for the executive committee members that didn't participate in the stakeholder working group process a few years ago, the culmination of that several month process was the passage of what was called the functional matrix, which lays out kind of the roles and responsibilities between staff, the commission, and the board of trustees. To take a close look at that functional matrix and see now, given light of this new legislation, what should change or what needs to change and what should change. And we thought that would be kind of a good exercise for the commission to walk through. And then Rich had a good suggestion of, because there's so many technicalities to that functional matrix, it lays out a lot of kind of various policies. For example, how we process budget revisions, carryover requests, from really granular issues like that to very large kind of policy decisions, how we decide on distribution plans for discretionary grants. That Rich and Kim thought it would be good to have the rules committee actually do a closer study and then come back to the commission with more kind of precise recommendations. I don't know, Rich, Kim, did I capture that?
Yes.
Is that summary accurate? Okay.
Then on 498, there's a big change, and I think we ought to highlight that. Can you share screen and scroll to, what page is it? Page 3, please.
Sure.
This is something commission members have been dealing with for a long time, and it's resolved finally in a very favorable manner.
Rich, before I shared screen for 498, did you want to have a bit more discussion on 211 to get?
Anyone have any thoughts about 211?
On how we're proposing to approach that? Okay. And which part, Rich, did you want me to scroll down to?
Page 3. And I'm in particular interested in sub paragraph D. The definition of indigent.
Yeah, so
person.
this is a huge kind of change. I mean, for the longest time, I think 10, 15 years, the community has been talking about that the 125% of the federal poverty threshold was pretty much outdated. A family of 4, I think at 125 is a little bit over 30,000. So, you know, with the recommendation of the Rules Committee and the analysis that the State Bar staff did around whether we should increase that, we issued a survey to our programs, and then there was a presentation done to the Board of Trustees, we were able to get a legislative fix to this. So now it's 200%. So everybody's very excited. We've already issued kind of guidance to our programs that this will take effect January 1st. We are working to kind of catalog all the changes that need to happen within our office in terms of updating Smart Simple, all our guidance, all of our references, and doing that so that it's clear everywhere. But this is just a tremendous kind of win for the community and the work of the commission and the staff. So we're really pleased. The other thing that got changed that we haven't talked about as much is it also excludes veterans disability benefits in the calculation for whether that income is qualifying.
Juan, would it be possible without much effort on your part or other staff to make this change from 125 to 200% a little less abstract and just show, maybe have a chart that shows the numbers, just like a one pager? I think it would be helpful for people to grasp it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I'll have that prepared for the commission.
Thank you.
This is extremely important because what we want to bring home, I think, to the commission is that the number of eligible recipients of legal services has changed dramatically because of this. And I may have overlooked it, but we have had some discussion in the past about expungement issues and whether or not those are within the purview of civil legal services, and the legislation has clarified that.
Yeah, no, that was also
really responded to the commission and staff in the various things that we've discussed over the last few years. The legislation is terrific.
And the expungement piece isn't in 498, it's in 211. But
right. Okay.
I have a question about the 200% change. If I recall correctly, pro bono organizations have a higher income eligibility threshold, right? Did theirs get raised too?
Theirs did not get raised. So if you receive a pro bono allocation, not just if you do pro bono, but there's a numerical test that you have to pass that you get an actual pro bono allocation on top of your regular allocation. You can use a higher income threshold that follows the HUD income threshold, which tracks cost of living in a particular county. So now with the 200%, there are some counties that the 200% is brings it closer to the HUD, and then in some counties it doesn't. So there's still some disparity.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh, Donnie, you're mute.
Yeah, realize that. Sorry. Duan, did you want to mention the sort of the two-pronged approach in SB 498 in terms of what's effective as of January 1 and what does not take effect until January 1, 2024?
Yes, so the legislation takes effect for programs can starting January 1st, they can serve clients using our money up to clients up to 200%. What's a little bit confusing is that when programs go to apply for funding in 2022, they're applying for funding in 2023. It looks back to it looks backwards, sorry, to 2021. And so the legislation doesn't take effect in 2021. So when they're applying for funding this upcoming year, it won't take effect in the application. We'll have to wait one more application cycle when they're actually applying in 2023 for 2024 funding.
What about fee waivers? Does this apply? So the 200%, are the fee waivers going to be modified with that?
There's separate legislation, I think, regarding fee waivers, but that the fee waiver piece.
Okay, because I think that's 125.
But I think there's pending legislation that raises that higher. Donna, I don't know if you have any insights to that. I can't remember right now off the top of my head what it is, but I know there is, because we were in talks with the Judicial Council, because part of our EF funding, there's a piece of that we get a portion of the filing fees. So the concern was if they raise the income for the fee waivers, we maybe get less for filing fees. So for actually 2022, we projected a little bit lower for filing fees because of that. We just can't anticipate now the filing fee revenue portion of it, because we don't know if the legislation that could pass, and if it does, then how that would impact the revenue stream. but I can't remember at the top of my head what it raises it to.
Okay, shall we move on? Duan, you want to discuss, I think we've discussed recruitment when we discussed the possibility of adding a nominations committee. So unless there's objection, I move to item G.
So item G is a preview of the Trust Fund Commission agenda. So let me pull that up. I just want to walk everybody through. It looks longer than it is. It's just we have a lot of wrap up. Sorry, my internet. I have to reconnect to the V drive. Give me a second. Okay, great. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is all administrative from 1 through 4. It's our consent and the state bar reports. And this is starting in 5 is our business items. So our November meeting is really like the main item is to approve IOLTA and EF budgets. As you recall, we've already approved eligibility for IOLTA and EF for 2022 grants at the last commission meeting. So once you had approved the eligibility, what staff did was ran the IOLTA formula, and then we released budgets. Programs then submitted budgets. They've been working with the eligibility and budget review committee to see if there are any kind of issues that need to be resolved, and then that committee will bring their slate of recommendations for approval at the commission meeting. Once the commission approves, then we go to release grant agreements and cut checks. So it's a fairly large item, and it culminates kind of our grant making calendar year for IOLTA and EF. Then we'll also talk about, give you a report on whether there are any of programs that apply for funding that are found ineligible, if any of them are going to be appealing. And so far we haven't heard back. So we'll provide an update then. We'll go over the client complaint that we discussed earlier regarding legal services in Northern California, and Dan will provide that update. And if there are any of the material changes, if the complainant comes back and actually requests reconsideration, or we will provide that update to the commission. And if there are no, then we will request dismissal of that complaint. And then the partnership grants, I'm still working with Crystal to see what items will be on there. But for now, it looks like at the very least, we're going to be approving the scoring rubric for 2023. And then the rules committee will bring forth a recommendation regarding pass-through and exchange funds. And once we have discussion and the commission approves that, I'm going to be working with Donna to see when we can get this on the Board of Trustees meeting agenda to present this first topic for from the rules committee codification process. And then we'll talk through the rules committee work plan. And then we'll go through some more administrative items, SB 211, SB 498, just like we did today. And then we'll discuss the commission's work plan for 2022. And the commission's work plan, as you know, a lot of it is the routine work that we do. So our sub-entity is unlike kind of other sub-entities where there may be like more significant changes to the work plan. But Rich and Kim are participating the state bar has is working with outside consultant as part of their 5-year strategic plan, and Chris and Rich are going to be meeting with them. So if they have anything to report out, I think they can share that item. And then we'll review the committee assignments and the administrative calendar, and then we'll close out with the liaison reports. So it looks like there's a lot of agenda items, but actually I don't think it's going to go the full 4 hours. And as you recall, we actually have one more ad hoc meeting in December to deal with the approval of homelessness prevention grants.
Any questions about that? Are there issues that anyone would like to be brought up before the commission that weren't included in the agenda? Okay. Next item is H on our agenda, legal service Trust Fund Commission priorities.
But I think that was just a placeholder, Rich. We were gonna skip over that because that was absorbed in the other conversations.
It would be interesting, I think, for some of you who follow this stuff, if you look at the 2000, Donna may remember, the strategic plan put together by the bar was 2015. I remember what year it was.
2017 to 2022.
Yeah, if you look at that, I think you'll see it's quite eye-opening. Our list of priorities is quite different, I would think, but from my perspective, more of the same. And the nominations committee, I think, is an important addition because I think having as great diversity as we can, geographic and otherwise, on the commission will help us to do our work. And we have to find folks who take these tasks as seriously as some of us do. So, all right, passing the placeholder, let's just discuss an idea that has come to Kim and me about recognition. Kim, do you want to start?
Yes, so we think that commissioners, when they are leaving, that we acknowledge their service in some way. And so we're considering if they can get some kind of commendation from the legislature. We just feel that sometimes people just kind of go off into the sunset and there's not really any recognition. And we think that should take place. And then we also think that staff works incredibly hard, sometimes too hard, and that we should figure out a way to acknowledge the work that they do. And I think we'd love to get some ideas about what might be a good way to honor both departing commissioners and staff, and not departing staff. I mean, not just departing staff, staff every day working, everybody gets these emails at all sorts of hours. So, and we just would like to start recognizing both groups in whatever way you guys think would be good. We're not really sure.
Our intent isn't to resolve this issue, but to raise the issue, take your pulse on it and see what you think about some form of recognition. And then maybe we'll work during the course of the year as an executive committee to come up with recommendations to the commission on how that might be accomplished.
And related to that, I mean, Rich and Kim were talking about when we're able to meet in person again. I think that will help in terms of any kind of recognition. As I don't know if you all remember, but that last meeting of the term usually is the one that's in person. Either we all travel down to Los Angeles or the Los Angeles crew comes up to San Francisco, and then we have, the nice lunch and we pass around like a parting gift for the commissioner. This year, because we weren't in person, we did do a certificate for the outgoing commissioners, and we sent it, but it didn't have the same kind of feel. And in the past, when we got together, all the commissioners would sign the certificate, and then we acknowledge, and it was a nice, very nice gesture. So I think some of it will be a lot better in person, but
and one of the thoughts that came to mind is we are doing a great deal of volunteer work. The commissioners, there's only 3 or 4 that transition out normally each year. This work might be recognized by the state bar in some way. I have advocated for years CLE credits, but that isn't going to happen. So a nice, suitable for framing recognition of the work. You're speaking to someone who put his vanity wall to sleep many years ago, but maybe that would be sufficient. When the working group finished, I think it was the working group, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everyone got a copy of Evicted, Matthew Desmond's terrific book on the homeless issue in Milwaukee. Just a fabulous book, and it really pertains to the work we do, very much so. But that sort of recognition might be more appreciated than a gold leaf parchment. I don't know, but I don't want to resolve it today. Just some ideas, and if you guys think that it's worthy of pursuit, then we'll bring it up again and see if we can make some progress during the course of the year. Donna, if you think the state bar would like to recognize commissioners on their way out the door, there may be a way to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think we were certainly just trying to be consistent in how that was done from the state bar's perspective, from committee to committee, because there had been a lack of consistency in that. But obviously, yes, we certainly want to recognize the hard work of the commissioners and the many volunteers that we have who spend many hours doing this incredibly important work. And it's I can reach back and find out where we settled on what approach we are consistently taking to do that.
Thanks. All right, there's nothing else on our formal agenda. We have met and beaten our time frame. I don't know of any items necessary for closed session, but before we get there, we should adjourn the general meeting of the committee. So I saw Christina nodding her head. I'll take that as a motion.
Yes. Sure.
I was gonna, Rich, in the vein of the thing, are the four of us actually all 10-year vets right now?
I think so.
Are we all of the 2013? Christina, you too, right?
I think I was before, and then I was off for a year, but yeah.
We're gonna all get engraved symbols.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had never heard of that complaint process before today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't needed to implement it.
Yeah.
This is a truly exceptional circumstance.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping that it's fully resolved and we don't need to worry about it anymore. But it does give us a little insight into part of our process that maybe we want to look at again in case we do need it.
Right.
I wonder, Brady, if there's a force majeure application to the 90-day rule during a pandemic or a power outage or whatever.
Well,
All right.
just say that we stand on the shoulders of staff having lasted this long. So
Right.
feel insignificant. So anyway, thanks everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Everyone, good meeting. Thanks so much.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.